Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Vikrant. Today I'll be discussing about immunity in COVID-19. So what is the problem in COVID-19? We keep coming across terms such as low immunity causes more severe disease. On the other hand, we also come across the terms of cytokine release syndrome or cytokine storm, which occurs because of high immunity. So what is the problem? Low immunity or high immunity? If low immunity is the problem, how can cytokine storm occur in people with low immunity? On the other hand, if high immunity is the problem, won't they tend to have more chances of getting cytokine storm? To explain this, first I'll discuss this chart. All the people I have treated with COVID-19 fall into either of these three categories. The first category is patient having mild symptoms. That is, patient will be having mild fever, maybe running nose, cough for a period of 1 to 2 days, and after which they will be absolutely asymptomatic. At around second week, they will completely recover. This is represented by blue line. Now the second set of patients are represented by gray line. These patients will be having fever, cough, headache, or whatever the constitutional symptoms only for a period of 2 days. They'll peak around 1 day and the symptoms will resolve the next day. And they will be absolutely asymptomatic for a period of 3 to 4 days. But at around 8th day, the symptoms will recur again. The fever will be more persistent, cough and shortness of breath will be more severe, and body pains will be more severe. These patients represent 20% of the population. The patients in blue, that is asymptomatic patients or mild infected patients, will represent 80% of the population. The second group, most of the population will not be requiring any support to therapy for organ failure, since most of them will recur spontaneously only with the help of oxygen support. But some of them may deteriorate into more severe or critical illness. The third group of patients, what happens is they will be gradually worsening from day one. The cough and shortness of breath will become more severe, body pains will increase, they will be having more severe headaches. At around day 7 and 8, they will suddenly worsen, the shortness of breath will increase more, they will require more oxygen support from day 8, they may require ventilatory support, and finally they can either deteriorate into more critical illness having sepsis and septic shock or end organ failure, or the patient may recover and change into moderate illness, which is unlikely to occur, and they represent less than 5% of the population. So why does this occur? Why are the population stratified into these three groups? To understand this, we have to understand our immune response. Our immunity is divided into two types. First thing is innate and second thing is adaptive immunity. Innate immunity has components such as epithelial barrier, phagocytes, macrophages, monocytes, natural killer cells, the complement system as well as the interferon system. These are the first line of defense for our body, and the thing is they are not specific. Irrespective of the virus which attacks our body, they will mount the similar immune response. It is like a throwing a grenade on the enemy. It is not specific, and whatever the organism, be it bacteria or virus, it will keep attacking, and it is not specific. And second type of immune response is adaptive immunity. It is like a sniper shot. It will target a certain pathogen and only attack that type of pathogen. So B cell and T cell response come under the adaptive immunity. Whatever the antibodies that are synthesized, and cytotoxic T cells or T helper cells all come under adaptive immunity. They are very specific, and the timing of the innate versus adaptive immunity is also different. Innate immunity works predominantly during the first 7 days, and adaptive immunity will take some time to get activated because the antigen should be presented to the adaptive immunity, and only after presenting will they mount the inflammatory response. For this, it will take some time, around 1 week time. So first 7 days, innate immunity. After 7 days, innate plus adaptive immunity. So what happens in COVID? In COVID, the virus will start attacking the nasal epithelium. After this, our body will respond with innate immune response. If the innate immune response is good, the virus will stay in low numbers and it will not affect the pulmonary capillary membrane or the lung parenchyma. Now, if the innate immune response is not good enough, the spread of the virus will be to the lung parenchyma and it replicates in very high numbers. On top of that, COVID-19 has a property that it inhibits the innate immune response. So, viral replication will be more. On top of that, innate immune response is also suppressed. So, during the first 7 days, virus tend to be invisible to our immune system because of this. This causes very high number of viral replication and our immune system does not react much to the viral replication. So briefly summarizing, if the patient is having low immunity, virus will replicate more. There is high viral load. This higher viral load suppresses the interferon response and it also suppresses the innate immune response. As we can see, this is the viral load of a patient having mild COVID-19. From day 4, 5, 6, since the patient is having good enough immune response, the viral load will gradually come down and virus will disappear within 4-7 days. We can also see that children will be having very mild COVID-19 because of robust innate immune response. Children's immune system is very weak. They don't have matured adaptive immunity. To overcome this, they have very robust innate immunity to overcome the diseases. So, COVID-19 children tend to have more milder form of illness as compared to adults because of innate immune response. Now, this happens in over the first 7 days. From the 8th day, what happens is the acquired immunity gets triggered. The antigen presenting cells start presenting to the T cell as well as the B cells. This causes triggering of both of these cells. They release cytokines. The cytokines causes activation of the monocyte, macrophages, neutrophils, and there will be stimulation of the bone marrow to release more WBC. There will be migration of WBC from the bone marrow to the periphery as well as periphery to the pulmonary alveoli. All these cells release cytokines and causes multi-organ failure and cytokine storm. So initially the interferon is suppressed, but from the day 7 interferon response is exaggerated and all the immune cells will get triggered and fights the virus as well as harming our body. So what's the evidence for this? As we can see, the antibodies for COVID-19 keep increasing from day 7. Antibodies represent the adaptive or acquired immunity, and the CD4 and CD8 cells also increase from day 7, which are a component of acquired immunity. This is the NK cells and monocytes, which are the innate immune response. They also increase from day 7, though not as much as CD4, CD8 cells or the B cells causing antibody release. So for the first 7 days, they tend to be suppressed innate immune response. From the 7th day, because of the triggering of CD8 and CD4 cells, there will be activation of both innate as well as acquired immunity. So what are the features of cytokine storm? First thing we have to remember is regarding the timing. It doesn't occur on the day 1 of illness. Cytokine storm doesn't occur on the day 1 of illness. If the patient is having fever, we have to ask for a preceding history of previous spike 1 week before. So if the patient presented with a fever which is persistent, then we have to ask whether the patient is having similar fever or a single spike of fever 1 week back. If the patient is having this positive history, then most probably the second spike indicates cytokine release syndrome or cytokine storm. Second thing is persistent fever. Even cytokine storm can be divided into mild, moderate and severe. Mild and moderate we tend to address as cytokine release syndrome and severe cases a cytokine storm. So persistent fever indicates that the patient might be having cytokine release syndrome. One thing to remember is in the initial spike of the fever will be less than 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So if the temperature greater than 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit may indicate the patient is in CRS. Second thing is, even after the use of antipyretics such as paracetamol, if the patient is experiencing persistent fever, then he might be in CRS. Third thing is, if the patient is having continuous fever, then he might be in CRS. So these are the clinical clues for the detection of CRS, and whatever the features the patient is having in CRS will be more severe than the initial spike. If the patient is having body pains, headache, fatigue, nausea, or GI symptoms, they will be more severe if the patient is having CRS. And they will be having features of organ failure such as difficulty in breathing, orthotopic hypotension, more dyspneic, they'll be having renal failure as well as liver failure. So what are the lab features? Lymphopenia is one of the most important thing, and we have to be careful while interpreting the WBC count in the patients with COVID-19. We should compulsory get a WBC count from day 7 to day 14 of the illness to check for first thing whether the WBC count is increasing, which could be because of cytokine release syndrome or secondary bacterial infection. It could be normal or it could be low. Lower values of WBC is expected in viral illness, but it also indicates the patient might be in CRS, since there tend to be a migration of WBC from the periphery of the blood to the pulmonary capillaries because of the CRS. So low WBC count in a patient with COVID-19 from day 7 to 14 indicates a poor prognosis, and the patient might be having CRS. Inflammatory markers such as ferritin, LDH, CRP, and D-dimer should be assessed. All these indicate the patient might be in CRS, and at greater than twice the upper limit of normal should be taken as more severe or moderate disease. IL-6 levels will be increased in CRS, and organ failure, any renal failure or liver dysfunction, elevation of liver enzymes, use of higher concentration of oxygen, ventilatory support, sepsis, hypotension, all these indicate patient is in cytokine storm. CT features of pulmonary opacification: the greater the involvement of pulmonary lung parenchyma, and more severe the CRS. So greater than 40 indicates the patient is having severe cytokine release syndrome, and greater than 20 then mild to moderate cytokine release syndrome. So this was the initial chart which I put in the slide 1. So let's see in view of immunity and viral replication among the three sets of patients. In the blue set, that is mild patients, the innate immune response is strong. The virus will enter the body, but the innate immune response will not allow the multiplication of the virus. So around day 7 to day 10, they recover completely. Now second group of patients, that is the people in gray color, they tend to have intermediate innate immunity. So initially innate immunity will mount a good response. This causes fever and features of viral replication, but the virus will keep on multiplying and will over the innate immune response. This viral replication will suppress the innate immunity because of the post-transcriptional modification of the interferon by the viral RNA. They will remain asymptomatic, and during the asymptomatic period, viral replication will continue, and there is continuous suppression of the innate immunity. From day 8, the adaptive immunity gets triggered. It activates innate as well as adaptive immunity. There are chances of cytokine release syndrome. Though majority of the people, because of a good enough immune response, tend to recover around third week with only oxygen support. Now the third set of patients, the patient in red color, they'll be having very poor innate immunity, and this poor immunity is further suppressed by the viral replication and the post-translational modification of the interferon, and around day 8 the acquired immunity gets triggered. This will in turn trigger the innate as well as acquired immunity, and they'll go into cytokine storm syndrome. So what is our strategy? Our strategy is to reduce the viral load at day 8 to as low as possible. We can do it with some of the drugs we are having at present, which include hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, ivermectin, doxycycline, favipiravir, interferon beta, as well as plasma therapy. So these are our strategies during the first week. But from the day 8, I don't think these strategies will be much useful. Once the cytokine storm sets in, there is nothing much to be done in terms of reducing the viral load. Body itself will clear the virus, but we have to make sure that immune response is not too much. We have to tune down the immune response so that it doesn't harm our body and we won't go into multi-organ failure, sepsis and shock. To do this, we can do with the help of steroid in turning down the immune response. To prevent blood clot formation, we can give low molecular weight heparin such as enoxaparin. We can also give interleukin 6 antagonists like tocilizumab, and also other immunomodulators to turn down the immune system. Once we turn down the immunity, whatever the virus is within the body will automatically get cleared with the help of our immune system itself. There's a lot of information regarding the immunity in COVID. These are some of the articles that I found interesting to read. You can just go across the articles and tailor your treatment according to the newer information which you get. Thanks for watching.